Hello, and welcome to a Product of Proverbs. It's your host, Joshua Fowler, with my dad, Roy Fowler. And for those listening, we are coming via video for the first time as well. So we're going to see how that go. Yep. So this podcast, A Product of Proverbs, is just a podcast in which we sit down and share wisdom. Me and my dad have all of these conversations, and we have been having these conversations for years. And I feel like the wisdom that's shared through these conversations really give you a one-up in life. They give you an advantage and give you a new approach for how to conquer life, because life is hard. So Product of Proverbs hopes to share that wisdom with you, anyone that chooses to tune in via the podcast or chooses to tune in via the YouTube. So with that, let's jump into today's episode. How's it going, Dad?
Oh, it's good. Everything's good.
This is good. I'm glad that we on video as well, because that's just another avenue to make some impact. Today's episode is community. A very, very important thing to me. As someone that feels a strong responsibility for the community that I grew up in and for the community and the people I grew up around. Community is big to me, and as always, this is a product of Proverbs. So we want to start off with the proverb, as that's what we're kind of here for. For this episode, I picked out Proverbs 27 and 17. That proverb says, "Iron sharpens iron as a friend sharpens a friend." So just going back to how we are responsible for our communities. We're responsible for the change. We're responsible for, if we want to see something implemented, you be the iron that goes and pushes your other friend. You sharpen yourself, and then you work to sharpen those around you, and you'll just notice that the community comes together and grows. But if we don't work on sharpening those around us, and we just make sure we're as sharp as we can be, we won't grow as a community.
Yeah.
We won't. Inspiration for this community topic really comes from an interview that I watched and I shared with you, the Breakfast Club interview for Dr. Claude Anderson. I'll include the link to that interview in our information section on our YouTube video and on this podcast. But what do you think? Because I know you don't watch many Breakfast Club interviews, or you actually do. Surprisingly, you talk to me about interviews. I'm like, I didn't know my dad be watching Charlemagne. But I sent you that one, and that one seemed to have an impact. What do you have to say?
It did. I watched that, and then I went back and watched it again and took notes. And on top of that, I found some more of his interviews to watch them, and it was very interesting what he shared. And let me tell you what I was thinking about community and the city, and we're talking about resources and building. Power base, Dr. Claude Anderson, and he talked about the power base, and the focus should be on the community and empowerment and economics, which is so vital, and resources. And I thought that was very interesting. And I was thinking, as we had talked about this, and you mentioned how was it growing up. When I was a kid, we didn't have the major businesses. Now, it's not like we're in the city, so there's no little Wall Street.
So yeah, also let's tell people about where you grew up. Emerson, Georgia.
Emerson, Georgia. It's a little hidden gem in Bartow County. It's a small town. Listen, Emerson probably have 1,000 people in the city now. So it's been real small. But the good thing about that little small town is that it's not far from anywhere. 5 minutes you can be on the expressway, 40 minutes you're in Atlanta, an hour you're in Chattanooga, just like that, Then you can come back to this little small town. But we lived in this little community in Emerson, and it was community. That's what I remember. Now, we live here in Kennesaw now, and we hardly know our neighbors. We do know one real good on one side, but you hardly know your neighbors. But when I grew up, it was community. It was the village. And you talking about enterprises. That little small town, I remember growing up, and in our little side of the town, there are tracks that separate, and we're familiar
with the West Side.
Yes, we lived on the West Side, and it was people there. I remember 1, 2, 3 houses where we could go and purchase things. It's like they had their own little business, you know. It was interesting because we were talking about, and we look at how back in the day blacks had major businesses, even like they mentioned Little Wall Street, place in Atlanta, Houston, different places. We didn't have that, and if you knew the demographics and the geographics of Emerson, you can understand why. But you did have people that were enterprising like that. So you didn't have to go to the store. You didn't have to go here or that way. You couldn't anyway. But you could just walk down to this lady's house and you could get ice cream. You can get sodas. You can get hamburgers. You can get hot dogs. You can get candy. Stuff like that. It was real interesting. They even had other businesses, if you know what I mean.
All black communities always have other businesses.
They made sure they had those other businesses as well. I remember one business was kind of like a club, where they done whatever they do in the club. Well, they had that in this little community, but they were very enterprising and they would do things, in a small way. But I see, as I listen to Dr. Claude and others about that, so you don't have that anymore. That's one of the things that we've lost, but you don't have those little communities anymore. Everybody's separated. Everybody's isolated. And you have a spirit of individualism, and that's going to destroy us.
That spirit actually touches on, I had made a post on Facebook that led to this. It said I'm going to elaborate on the podcast, but I call it the sole proprietorship versus corporation mentality. So what that means is those are two separate kind of business structures. So when you sign up for a business, you say, I'm going to be a sole proprietorship. I'm going to be a limited liability corporation. I'm going to be an S Corp. I'm going to be a C Corp. The sole proprietorship it's not really a legal entity. I was looking up in the definition. It's not a legal entity. It's just a business structure. It's a business that is solely owned and operated by one individual. This one person takes all the risk. They reap all the reward. They have full control. A corporation, on the other hand, is a legal entity. It's for a larger business that is comprised of shareholders. So shareholders are just people that are invested. Instead of one person, you have 2, 3, 300 people that own. Our community and our people, we just have this mentality that's so detrimental and dangerous that we need to be the boss. We need to be in control. We don't understand that you don't have to be the CEO to reap the benefits of everything. You don't have to be the head honcho. You can be in that corporation and profit share. I know people like numbers. I did a little bit of research. They said that the average revenue, and this is from the IRS, the average revenue for sole proprietorship, so one person owned businesses, $56,255. And that's just your revenue. That's how much money you made over the year. And then after your expenses, your average net income for that sole proprietorship is $11,696.
Wow.
So you made $56,000. You paid out your money to yourself. You paid your business expenses. You paid your taxes. You paid for your equipment, and you saw $11,000. A corporation, on the other hand, its average revenue is $1,584,1113. This is average. I own a corporation. Walmart's a corporation. So we're averaging all of those, and we meet at 1.5 million. The average profit is $53,856. But think about the business expenses, what you paid out to shareholders.
Yeah.
You go much farther as a group. You also take many more benefits as a legal entity within the IRS. You have so many more avenues to use this corporation. So we have to get out of the mentality that I want to be the boss. I want to be the boss and I might make 50,000. I want to be a part of something greater and we'll all make 1.5 mil. And we can share that. I'd rather share 1.5 mil with the group of people that helped me get there than take 54,000 just by myself. Because you got to think, you have to work so much harder when it's just you. When it's a group of you, you all play your role and you all reap the benefits. So we just have to get out of that mentality just as a community that we can go farther together. So Dr. Claude Anderson, back to your point about a community, he told us the 3 things that make a community. And I really enjoyed his example of a community versus a neighborhood. As in a neighborhood, it's just all of the houses together. It's the houses and your neighbors. And that's why when your neighbors move out, you just have a hood. That's what he said in his interview. I really like that. Because you have your neighborhood and then your neighbors move to the suburbs or to the city, gentrification, and wherever your neighbors just left from, it's just the hood remaining. But if you have a community, that community is always there. So the 3 things that make a community, number 1, it has a wholly independent economic structure. Number 2, they have a code of conduct. Community governs themselves and their people, and they have expectations for how you live and how you move if you're in that community. And thirdly is they have political representation that will look out for them. To take it further, he said 4 points that go into building a community. The first one is economics. That comes first. The second one is politics. He says you need to buy into politics. You can't buy into politics without the economics. The third is media. Like we're doing now, you need to control the media. You need to control the narrative. You got to control the substance that feeds your community. And the fourth one is education. It was very cool to me that he had education last, because as a community or as a people, we've been trained and taught and choose to put education first. So before we get the economics, before we get into politics, before we control media, we want that piece of paper and that validation. But he says to use education as a resource. So after you have those things in place, you use education to advance yourselves. But you can't take education and try to advance when you don't have nothing to advance. What do you think about that?
I think he mentioned that's why you got people with masters flipping burgers at McDonald's. Because they don't have any other base. And you can be shut down in that with opportunities. But if we would have all those business bases already in place, then when people come out of school or whatever, they'll have somewhere to go.
Are you ready?
Yeah, and that's key. With the education being last on his list, I see that because he's pushing the fact that you've got to have resources, you've got to have businesses, you've got to have opportunities for people. So you get the education to build more into what you've already established. But if you just get the education, then you don't have nothing to pour into.
It's hard to refute. Like it really comes back to one of our previous episodes. It's perspective.
Yeah.
Where do you sit on it? For someone that has education and resources, we can see the benefit of it. But for someone that has education and no resources, and education is all they got, they might look at it differently because their perspective shows that education holds more weight. They wouldn't be able to access resources without that education. He said we got to control resources. The number one resource is our services and skills. I think about here, anytime when growing up, something would go wrong at the house and we needed a service, we needed a plumber, we called William.
Yeah.
We had a black plumber come. So we bounced that money in and out of our community by supporting the people that have the skills and perform the services. That's a way that we can control resources outside of, saying, having land with fruit to grow, or having land where you grow cotton, or you can have resources and use your skills as a resource. I know we have a kind of flow to these episodes, and in the spirit of community, in the spirit of economic inclusion, we're going to start our sponsors. So this episode is sponsored by 2 separate businesses that we use. easy ways that most people circulate money in their community already, but your barber. So I want to take a second to shout out Courtney. Courtney goes by the name of Coco Scissorhands, like Edward Scissorhands. She's a barber out of Professional Cuts on the east side, 749 Moreland Ave, actually. I can vouch for her. She did this cut. I mean,
Nice.
Yeah, nah. And it was a barber experience like I had never seen before. I mean, I go in, I get shampoo, condition, a head massage. You sit down, you get the clipper cut. She runs some scissors on the top, and she give you a razor lineup. On top of that, she offers booking via her app. So you just book, set your time, and you're good to go. Hairstylist and barber means she's doing braids, she's doing locks, she's doing women's style, she's doing men's long style, shortcuts. She's skilled. She's licensed barber, and that's Spam. That's our cousin. So
Okay.
I want to shout out Courtney, Coco Scissorhands. You can contact her directly at 404-500-6864. Or you can book via her Instagram at Coco Scissorhands. And I know you're not going to know how to spell that. So that information will be at the bottom info section of the YouTube video and the podcast. With her being on the east side, that's for my people that's in Atlanta. We also have a lot of people here in Kennesaw, in Cartersville. So I also wanted to shout out To Elite Barbershop. So To Elite Barbershop, located on 1735 Tuscan Heights Boulevard in Kennesaw, Georgia. This is black owned and new black owned. So Stretch used to work for a shop, and then him, Chris, and Dave broke off and started their own business.
Okay.
So 3 barbers came together, invested in their chairs, invested in their mirrors, built up the shop. Man, their clientele is booming. There's always people in there. Stretch or Chris or Dave, they also have new barbers in the shop as well, but they want you to get in contact with them at their Instagram, To Elite Barbershop. So I'll also have that in the bottom info section. They're open 7 days a week, so they work with you. And I know Stretch has came in at 7 a.m. to cut me before flights. I went to Stretch's house at 8 p.m. if I had a special event. No, they'll work with you. They accommodate you. So they're sponsoring this episode. So you guys show them some love. When you go, just tell them about a Product of Proverbs and let them know that you wanted to support black business.
That's very important that we as a people, and that's one of the things that have hurt us. And we're going to talk about community, and we're not going to talk about our geographical location. We're going to talk about our people. Mm-hmm. It is so sad and so disheartening to see where we are because we won't support one another. I wonder why is that? Where do we get to that point where I don't trust my brother or I don't trust my sister? I trust everybody else. My question is, do you think, and this is a question that you got to ask yourself, do you think that others are better than you are? Do you feel inferior to other, let's just go ahead and say it, races of people? Then you've got a serious problem and shortcoming. You got to answer that question for yourself, because I'm inclined to believe that we think others are better than we are.
That's a very
Because the question is, why not? A black doctor, black dentist, black barber, black whatever. Why not?
That's jealousy.
Okay.
That's jealousy why we won't support them. Why won't you subscribe to your friend's YouTube channel? You will watch the video, but you won't click subscribe. Well, because I want a YouTube channel, but I don't think I'd have enough subscribers. That insecurity in me that doesn't allow for me to move forward makes me not want to support and hope that the other people don't move forward, because I already feel so low that if they keep going higher, that just continues to make me lower.
Okay.
I think it's internal. It's the fact that it's insecurity. It's the fact that we don't want to own up to our destiny. We don't want to do what we're supposed to do. We'll continue coping and working around, and then when we see somebody that stepped up to the plate, that eats at us. Like, I'm not supporting that. Like, I never thought about that until this second. But yeah, that internal jealousy be a big thing. It stops you from going, because you don't want to see them take off and do what you feel like you should be doing.
I want to say this to everyone. Listen, we've got to stop being jealous of one another. We just got to do it. You mentioned, I don't want to see you go up because I have to look further up to see you because I'm down here. Well, you know what? You're down there anyway. You ought to want somebody to be able to do something, because if somebody come up, they're going to help you up. Who you look for? You want somebody to help you up. You talk about there's nothing. Well, let's make something happen. We're going to make it happen by working together. And it doesn't matter who's the CEO. Everybody's going to get dividends. Everybody's going to get dividends. So that's all that matters. But your scripture again, iron sharpens iron. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we are to sharpen each other, not make each other duller, mm-hmm. But sharper. And community together. If we're going to be successful, it's going to be working together. That's not only going to work in the world, but that's, a biblical principle. Yeah. That's just the way it is. You were talking about the tower in last week in episode of how they could do that. And together you're able to do whatever you want to do. Yeah. When you have a common cause and a common goal, then you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. But it's got to be common. We've got to be together. You mentioned two things, that those business terms you use.
Sole proprietorship.
Yes.
Corporation.
Right. Those two. And you see the difference. Mm-hmm. But at least, I might only end up with $11,000, but look at me.
Look at me. Ego.
Yes. But together, in a corporation, it's not about me, but the success, I'm a part of that success. It's very interesting. So I was thinking, as you was talking about stretch, and we talked community, we talked corporation, and just think about what he was able to accomplish, he and three other guys. Mm-hmm. What a difference that made. And they're other people. So by them being willing to work together, they open opportunities for others to come. And that's what we've got to do. We need to look at, we always say there's nothing for us to do. Well, find something to do and do it. And if you start doing it, then that'll open up doors for somebody else to have something to do.
Stretch told me the other day, he said that one of those new barbers said, man, this shop is a cash cow. I got chills over my body when he said that, because I'm like, I remember when y'all branched out and it wasn't really nothing in here. They got a pool table now. They got 5-6 booths. They got seating areas. I remember that first kickoff barbecue and it was just the homies kind of hanging out. And now you see that you're providing job opportunities for other people that look like you, and they are so grateful and it's changing their lives. But like you said, they had to jump off the porch to do that. And by jumping off the porch, they didn't have to do it alone. Stretch couldn't have done this by himself.
That's what I was thinking. When you said that, I said, look at this. This is an example of what we're trying to tell you and trying to show you. It'll happen. Now, we've got to, as a people, stop expecting somebody else to pick us up. Check this out. We want somebody to lift us up, but we won't help anybody go up. We got to be willing to push somebody up, and hopefully and prayerfully, when they get up, they can pull us up, and we can pull somebody else up. But somebody got to be standing up. So let us all work towards helping somebody. And what was that word you said? Jealousy? That's a terrible thing, because you gain nothing from that. All that will do is destroy you and whatever's around you.
The ego is what would have a slave tell on the runaway slave. Yeah. He say, they gonna be free, but I'm still gonna be here. No, they not. Come on.
Yeah. If, I'm afraid to go, and I'm not gonna let you go.
Lady with the women's clothing store, she said, look, I'm about to go. I'm about to get my economic freedom. I'm about to do and fulfill my destiny and follow my dreams. The rest of the slaves that were scared to leave said, no, you're not. We're not going to give you food for your journey. Mm-mm. We're not going to give you the clothes off our back so you got changes. They said, nah.
Not understanding that her success would equate to their success.
Exactly.
See, that's the thing we're missing. Mm-hmm. their success is going to help. Now, you probably say, no, they'll just think about themselves and they'll look back. Well, forget about all that, because it's not changing where you are anyway. Where you are is where you are. So you saying they're going to do this, you don't even know that.
You want to know why?
Why?
Because if they got there, that's what they would do. They would get back, and they ain't going back with nobody.
That's what it is. That's exactly what
it is. It's that knowing themselves in their stomach. They know that if I had this opportunity, I would have won, and I would have not looked. I wouldn't care nothing about them. They would have known if I had the chance to get free, I'm not risking my freedom to come back and make anybody else free. So I think that when they get free, they ain't risking their freedom to make anybody else free.
So the reason, what you're saying is this: the reason they feel that way or say those things is because that's the way they are.
Exactly. It's they heart.
It's their heart.
It's their heart. Another lyric, I'm going to bring it back to Nip. I mean, when I get the studio for this podcast, like All the Smoke, another podcast I watch, there will be a Nip painting on the wall in the back. But his lyrics say, 100,000 cash make you feel important. Break bread with your team, now you feel extorted. You got to get that out your heart because we can't afford it. As soon as you help other people, we feel like they're using us. We feel like I could have had more, but now I have less because we have more. We can't afford that. That got to go. If we as a community going to do anything or go anywhere, that has to go. Just point blank. We can't afford that.
We've got to wake up. We got to change our minds. We got to change our thinking. Whatever brought us to this point, listen, we got to break it.
So, in the last episode, we did a call to action and said, write down your goals and then write a why by each of your goals. And I got feedback that a lot of people did that exercise, and it really gave them a good perspective. It really helped them. I want to give a call of action to our listeners. I want you guys to write down all the ways that you can spend black. If you're not black, if you're in another community or of another demographic, write down all the ways that you can spend within your community. Write it down. Think it out. Say, okay, I can get my hair cut. Okay, if something goes wrong here. Okay, I think I know somebody. Like, look at my shirt right now. This is my friend's clothing company. You can go and spend money on your friends for clothes instead of going to Nike. Think about all the little things that you can do to help stimulate and send money within our economy. With that, thank you, Dad. Episode 4.
My pleasure.
Episode 4, Community, is in the books. Another week. Thank you all our listeners for tuning in, because we're doing it for you. As I said, we both have jobs. We're not trying to get rich off a podcast. We are here to make an impact in the world. And to make that impact, we got to have people that listen to us. And please, like I said, I don't care for you to follow us. I don't care for you to like or give us a 5-star review. I just want you to share this with somebody that you feel it may help, so we can spread this positivity throughout the world and we can make the change that we want to see. With that, we're going to sign off. Another episode in the books.
All right.
Here we go.